Welcome! Here we are at my FLSUN Q5 3D printer, and in this video we'll be installing rubber bands on the parallel arms, and we'll also be lubricating them. If you'd like to see the other videos I've made on the FLSUN Q5 printer, I'll put a link below to my playlist. So we'll be installing some rubber bands around here, and the idea is that there can be a little bit of play in this. I mean, I can feel just a tiny bit of play, and putting rubber bands on here will create a little bit of tension that will make that just that much tighter. So I just have this container with random sizes of rubber bands, and I've pulled out 6 that are all the same size. So this is it right here. You know, there's some real thick ones, there's some real small ones. I think this is going to work best for me. I don't need this super tight. I just want a little bit of tension on it. So if you're at the store buying rubber bands, I'd look for some about this size. Now I've looked online, and there are 3D models you can download of a little S-shaped hook you can put on here. So you'll take the rubber band and you'll wrap it around here and hook it to itself, and that certainly would work well. I'm just going to use zip ties. Now you could get some little metal hooks. I'd be hesitant to do that for a couple reasons. One, if it breaks, you're having that metal fall down onto your plate. Another is you're adding more weight. The rubber bands and zip ties are very lightweight. So I'm using a somewhat smaller zip tie. You could use a larger one too, probably. So I'm just going to stretch the rubber band over and pass the zip tie through, and then I'll start closing it off like so. And then I'm going to move the rubber band down here, right about there. So I'll tighten this up. And you don't have to tighten this all the way if you have too much tension on there, but I'll get it tightened up. Now I'm going to pull on this. It's starting to kind of twist. I want even tension on the front and back. I'll tighten that up, and I'll use my flush cut pliers to trim the end of the zip tie. So these are pretty long zip ties. It can help to have a little bit longer zip ties, even though you're only using a tiny portion of it, but it makes it easier to pass through when you're installing them. So here we have this here, putting just a little bit of tension on this. You can see, not super tight, but again, you'll want to kind of pull on the end so you make sure the tension on the front and back are the same. Now this is kind of moving up and down. You want to be careful. You don't want to move it real quick. It can backfeed electricity into the controller. So I'll do this to all 6 arms on the bottom and the top. Okay, I have these all installed. Now these rubber bands are likely to dry rot over the years, so I'll probably have to cut them off and replace them. So don't expect to put these on and have them last a really long time. It wouldn't be a bad idea to check them every once in a while, and if you start seeing little cracks, just replace them prematurely so they don't fall into your print. And I also want to make sure these are not bound up, so I'll kind of straighten them out. Of course, they will rotate and find their own place where they want to be, but I want to start them off straight. Next, I'm going to lubricate the ball joints. So there's going to be 12. Those are here. I'm going to use silicone grease. So this is Danco silicone grease. This is meant for plumbing applications. I think this will be a good grease for this application too. If you want to purchase some of this, I'll put a link to it in the description, and if you use that link, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. So we don't need a lot of grease, just a little bit. I'll put a little on both sides and I'll work it in. Now, if you put grease on in the past, you can wipe that off completely and then reapply new fresh grease. So this stuff is very thick. I'll just put a little on there, and I can even rub it around with a swab. I'll do the same to all the joints. Yeah, I didn't really like the cotton swab. I'm just going to use one of the cutoffs from the zip ties. So I'm going to repeat that on all sides. Okay, so I have everything lubricated up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bed leveling on it and a Z-height calibration, since putting the rubber bands on could tweak the geometry just a little bit. Then I'll run it through some prints and such, and I'll come back and I'll wipe off any of the grease that is sticking on the outside. There'll be enough grease on the inside to keep it lubricated. If you have a bunch of excess grease on the outside, that could collect dust and dirt. So that's lubricating and installing rubber bands on the parallel arms of an FLSUN Q5 3D printer. That's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.